Welcome back to the Champagne on Ice podcast presented by the Field of 68. Illinois is not done yet. They are headed to the Elite Eight. They knock off Iowa State 72-69 in the Sweet 16 in Boston. We're going to break that all down, and we've got a monumental matchup Saturday night with a trip to the Final Four on the line against the number one overall seeded UConn Huskies. Can't wait to talk about it all. I am Kyle Tausk, joined as always by Mike Farmer. And Mike, I just told you before we hit record on this, first year of the pod and Illinois is in an Elite Eight. I mean, we deserve a little credit for this run, right? I'm not saying we caused it, but the facts are undeniable. Year one of the Champagne on Ice podcast, Illinois breaks through to the Elite Eight for the first time in 19 years. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it feels so good, man. Like I said last time, just thanks for everybody for listening the whole year. Like, it's been an awesome ride being able to do this and talk about the team the entire season. But man, that win last night, best win of my entire life, literally best win of our entire 20-year lives. It just felt so good from start to finish. So some shaky, questionable times in the middle of the game, but Illinois finished strong, and we're playing for the damn Elite Eight tomorrow night against UConn to go to the Final Four. It feels so awesome.
Yeah, what a win, really. Illinois got off to such a great start, but you knew that Iowa State was going to make a run, but it was just so impressive how Illinois never let them tie the game. Like, they had chances in the second half, multiple possessions where they had cut it to 2, cut it to 4, and Illinois just had an answer every single time that they were knocking on the door of taking control of the game back. And the great start that Illinois had in the first half really kind of catapulted them, allowed them to have some breathing room going into the second. And really, they should have been up 15 or 20 at halftime if they could make a free throw. They played great for most of the night. The Illinois' defense was much better on offense. They did enough against an Iowa State defense who their defense is legit. Watching that last night, that's a legit number one defense in the country that Illinois had to work hard to get to 72 on, but just an unbelievable win. What stood out most to you from that performance from Illinois?
I think, like you just mentioned, leading the entire game in a high-caliber Sweet 16 game like that against one of the best teams in the entire country. Illinois hasn't had a performance like that in at least 2 years. Like, awesome game against Texas last year, UCLA. Not a lot of huge wins this year against like teams of that really high quality, like Iowa State was last night. So I don't know, just pretty dominant. Like you said, Illinois could have been up 15-20 at the half if they made free throws. You get some other looks to go down in the second half. Like, that game, the lead extends by a lot. But obviously, no real complaints about that. Just happy to be playing for an Elite Eight. But yeah, Terrence Shannon just continues to be the best player in the country. You can look at Edey and some other guys potentially, but I don't know, man. Like, this 6-game stretch, all postseason games, he has just been the best player in the country. I don't know how else to say it. He scores from 3, from mid-range, gets to the hoop, hits fast breaks. I only had I think he made 4 or 5 free throws last night and still dropped 28 or 29.
Yeah, 5 of 10 from the free throw line. If he shoots his normal 8 for 10, he's got 32.
Yeah, so I think we can put the free throw merchant narrative to bed. Like, against the number one defense in the country, he's still going for 30 with a poor shooting night, kind of from the free throw line at least. Like, that's the number one player in the country. It's sickening that he's a third-team All-American, but we're not focused on that right now. But I don't know, contributions from Coleman. Damask didn't even play his best game, and that was kind of expected based on Iowa State having the best defense. They could kind of take him out of the game in some ways with their guard play. But Dane off the bench, Goody off the bench, like, contributions from everywhere, really. Just so, I don't know. That was so happy for those guys. So proud of the team. Just awesome game.
Yeah, I think it's kind of inarguable that Terrence Shannon has been the best player in the country since the postseason began. He's averaging 31.2 points in 6 postseason games. That includes carrying his team to a Big Ten championship, carrying his team to an Elite Eight. I mean, it's an unbelievable run. And his run-out steal with 25 seconds left to kind of seal the game, probably the best play that this Illinois program has had, the most consequential play for the Illinois program since '05. I don't know if it's stretched to say that. I mean, it was such an electrifying play, a play that an All-American player makes. And yeah, 29 points. He had 3 threes in the first half, just was willing to shoot, willing to still be aggressive. You can tell Iowa State was doing everything they can to clog the paint, make sure that he wasn't going to get easy driving angles, but just off some rotation. He got some shots in the first half, got to the foul line a couple times at a couple and ones, and then got in foul trouble, had to sit from like the 11-minute mark to the 5-minute mark, comes off the bench cold, makes a 3 the first possession off the bench, and then seals the game with some free throws and obviously that run-out steal. Just a absolute superstar player. It's just watching these last 6 games has been mesmerizing to just see a guy that is so dominant and so unstoppable regardless of what you throw at him. And yeah, last night he really got nothing in transition. It was 29 points just by taking what the defense gave him and asserting himself in the game. Just incredible stuff. I thought Coleman Hawkins played an outstanding game on both ends of the floor last night. Defensively, one of his best defensive performances. That gave me shades of like Michigan earlier this year where he was just so active. Nothing was really getting through him at the rim. Iowa State was terrible at the rim, which has been kind of Illinois' big weakness defensively, is the high percentage that they give up at the rim because you don't really have a rim protector. I thought Coleman and Dane both are really good. Now, Iowa State missed some ones they probably make most nights, but Illinois defensively was just way better. Damask 2 for 11, 4 turnovers. On the stat sheet, it looks like he had a terrible game, but I think he actually played better than that shows because you could tell anytime he caught it, Iowa State was trapping him, trying to force him baseline, and I thought he made some good passes and just facilitated nicely. And like you mentioned, bench contributions as well. I thought Goody was fantastic. The spark that he gave, the shots that he took in the second half with a ton of confidence, 2 huge threes, got fouled on an offensive rebound with like 1:40 to go. Dane was kind of up and down. It wasn't quite sure what to make of a couple of Dane's decisions, but he did give you some big plays as well. I thought he was good on defense too. He's been great on defense all postseason, which has been kind of what's kept him off the floor. And you'd imagine he's going to be a huge piece for the next game, as he's been all throughout this run. His resurgence has been awesome to watch, but just a great team performance again. Obviously, you look at the box score and you see the 29 from Terrence, and you see who the best player on the team was clearly. But I think the supplementary pieces were outstanding, and just a gutsy team win that kind of played to Iowa State's style. Like, I thought the formula for Illinois to win was to just kind of take Iowa State out of their like grind it down half court style of play. Illinois kind of just was willing to play that and beat them at it, which was pretty impressive, especially with some of the defensive issues. So best win that this Illinois program has had in a long time. Just feels unbelievable, and just great to see the contributions Illinois got across the board.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like, Illinois really did not play at their pace for the most part, and they still won, still never trailed in the game. Like, that's huge. And beating a team of that caliber, like I said earlier, Illinois hasn't done the entire year. Like Wisconsin, Michigan State, Northwestern, those teams are on a lower level, even FAU. Like, Illinois just has not beat a team as good as that the entire year. And to do that on the biggest stage that we've had in 19 years or so, so awesome. Like, obviously, UConn is an entire different beast of a team. So, but just having a win like that is so encouraging, even for the game tomorrow night. Like, I feel so much better about this team than I did 2-3 weeks ago. Like, it's so awesome to be here. But Dane was huge in the second half. Like, he had some really questionable decisions, like trying to run out in transition. Some of his passes, like when he was dribbling the ball, it was almost comical.
He made a great defensive play near half court where he got a steal, and then he tried a behind the back like transition dribble and gave it away. I'm like, my man, let's pass that off.
Yeah, but some of it, he had a couple buckets in the second half that were honestly crucial because we had some offensive droughts, and he got some offensive boards and was able to put it back up. That was huge. Goody, I mean, that 3 with 5 minutes to go was massive. He's had some overall, he's been great this year offensively and just 3-point shooting wise. But he's had a couple dry spells from 3. To see that go in, he hit one earlier in the game too. Like, just awesome from him. Who else? Like, Terrence was so dominant. Like you said, Coleman, I think he had a great game. Didn't score. He didn't have 20 and 10 or anything, but like just his contributions defensively and offensively. Like, had a 3, had a steal that led to a run out, got a dunk. Like, some other great plays. Yeah, like you said, Damask, obviously the stats don't look great, but he's still such a huge part of this team, and that showed on a couple crucial plays last night. But man, overall, like I think getting out to that hot start was so crucial. Like the same with Duquesne. Duquesne's way worse than Iowa State, clearly, but like going out and starting up 8-0, starting up 16-6 or whatever it was, it's so huge. Like Iowa State never leads in that game. Illinois has had some games in the past few years where like they are in the same boat Iowa State was in last night, where they go down early and then all of a sudden they never lead for the whole game. Maybe they get back within two, but it's like that's the worst feeling as a fan and as a player, I'm sure too. Just never being able to tie it, never being able to lead, like not hitting clutch shots that can get you tied up. And that just seems demoralizing to me. Like, and Illinois was able to keep their foot on the gas for the most part and just never really let Iowa State get back in the game fully. Obviously, they still had to close. Like, the game was close at the end and for most of the second half. But yeah, just getting out to that hot start. If you can do that again against UConn tomorrow night, I don't know. You're going to have to play a complete 40 minutes, obviously, but something about those good starts it's really encouraging.
Yeah, the start was fantastic, and just the way that Illinois was moving the ball out of those traps and kind of just picking apart Iowa State's defense early in the game. Now, there were plenty of dry spells where Iowa State forced some turnovers, but early in the game, Illinois looked like that Iowa State wasn't going to stop them, and they were making shots too. A lot of their shots were from three, so they were bound to cool off a little bit. I think they made like 4 of their first 7 threes, and then the rest of the half were like 1 for 9 or something, but that's kind of expected. But I thought the movement was great. Terrence being ready to shoot and making a couple shots. And Quincy made a shot there early, and defensively in the first half, I thought Illinois was fantastic. I know it's Iowa State team that's not necessarily known for their offense, but they've got some good offensive players that Illinois really kept quiet. You look at Milan Momcilovic, who had 1 point, didn't make a field goal. That's a guy who's had some 20-point games this year and is an NBA prospect in the future. Illinois didn't let him get going at all. Taman Lipsey, their point guard, really, other than a couple drives early in the second half, didn't do a whole lot, and that was a guy that Terrence was on a little bit and Ty was on a little bit. Really, most of Iowa State's offense came off their bench from Curtis Jones, who was kind of their one spark, who was doing everything. Illinois didn't really have an answer for him, but in terms of the starters, Keyshawn Gilbert, 14 points on 5 of 13. You live with that. Illinois played really well on defense. I think defense kind of won them the game here because there were opportunities in the second half for Iowa State to finally take the lead where Illinois got some crucial stops. But in the first half, Illinois really got them out of their rhythm, and they were forcing some really bad shots. Part of it was Iowa State's shot selection was horrible in the first half, but part of that was Illinois was making them take the shots Illinois wanted to make them take, which were floaters, 12-foot floaters, long twos, tough faders, and those shots weren't going in. But it was great to see, too, that it really did feel like Illinois dominated the first half. You enter the locker room up 10, and the feeling, at least that I had at halftime, I know most fans felt the same, Illinois should have been up 15 or more at halftime. If they could make a free throw, they would have been up 15 or more at halftime. And sure enough, you felt like a lot of times in that situation where you kind of leave some meat on the bone heading into halftime, well, that other team feels like, man, to be down 10 right now, that's a huge win for us. And Iowa State comes out to start the second half and makes it 4. And a lot of teams that kind of would fall apart. Illinois just had answers throughout the second half. It didn't need to be a situation. I thought Illinois played better in this game than the 3-point margin indicated. And for a lot of teams, having to kind of stave Iowa State off when it feels like you've been controlling the game the whole time would have been difficult. But Illinois, it just felt like every time Iowa State was so close to taking control of the game back, Illinois would make a big shot or would get to the free throw line. Damask had a massive and one when Iowa State was making a run. Coleman had a huge 3 and shushed the crowd after it. Shannon made that huge 3 coming right off the bench. Goody made a huge 3. Like, Illinois just found answers every time it felt like they were in danger of kind of giving the game up. And for a lot of these past Illinois teams, I think that's been a problem for them. And this team, just with their experience and their maturity, it feels like they're just so fearless, even in these moments all season, whether it was a Big Ten championship, whether it was in some of their big road games, whether it's now through the tournament. Like, the moment's not phasing this experienced group at all, which is to be expected, but you still have to go do it. And Illinois just had an answer for everything in the second half when it felt like they shouldn't have had to work that hard to win this game, because I thought they were the better team by more than 3 points, but they found a way to do it anyway, which is fantastic, and that bodes well if you're in a similar type of game against UConn. If you're so fortunate, it's going to be much harder, but I trust the way that this team is going to find a way to make big plays and not shy away from the big moments.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear the veteran leadership, the fifth year seniors, like these guys that have just been in college for 100 plus games, that's finally showing itself at the right time. Like there's something about having your star player, Terrence Shannon, go out with four kind of cheap fouls and still staying afloat in the game for the majority of the second half, because he sat out for like
It was
probably
6 minutes.
6 minutes.
Yeah.
6 minutes, yeah. And Illinois still never trailed in the game. I don't think Iowa State even tied it at any point. Could be wrong about that, but
No, they didn't.
yeah, they didn't. Yeah, those fouls were. They must have called 4 or 5 fouls on Illinois, like just running through screeners defensively. Like that was crazy by
Yeah.
itself. But
If you're the fouls that I love to see the most are those, because that tells me Illinois was actually working hard and fighting over those. That's been a huge problem, is how easily some of these guys have gotten screened and gotten taken out of plays. So if Illinois commits 10 fouls just by running over screeners, I'll actually live with that.
yeah, I could live with that too. But back to your point about the defense, like first half especially, it got shaky. Started the second half, like they're just kind of looked like low energy for whatever reason. But the first half, they were like just kind of dominating defensively. Like Iowa State taking terrible shots, floaters. Curtis Jones was the only reason they were not down like 20 or 25. Keyshawn Gilbert had that little stretch by himself in the second half. But other than that, like Iowa State's offense looked kind of putrid. And that's still a top 50 offense in the country. Like we say, it kind of looked like they didn't have guys that could really hit shots at key moments. And I don't know, like they didn't really have a star player. Taman Lipsey is probably their best player, sophomore point guard, only averaging like 12 a game. But Iowa State still is a 2 seed. They still won the Big 12 tournament. Like they have guys that can hit shots, but Illinois just really didn't let them. And besides Keyshawn Gilbert and Curtis Jones for most of the game, like I think Illinois did a great job defensively. And I think that just goes to show, like I mentioned earlier, fifth year seniors, Brad Underwood, just desperate for tournament wins. Like these guys, it's win or go home. Like you got to show up on defense at some point. And I think Illinois has done it for the most part this tournament. Obviously playing Morehead State and Duquesne is different than what UConn's going to be tomorrow night, but encouraging defensively, I would say, this tournament. And I think it's so good to see, because we know Illinois' offense has been the best in the country for 2-3 months minimum, but the defense has been like bottom 100 in the country. So seeing Illinois win a game like that, kind of based on their defense and having huge defensive stops at the right moments, so awesome to see. That it's like one of my points, or one of my takeaways from this entire season, is to never give up on like a team, even a player. Like you look at Dane Danger getting like 3 minutes a game in Big Ten play, and he's been one of our top 5 contributors for this 6 or 7 game win streak. That's been the best win streak in program history. Even like I was just saying, not giving up on the defense. Like they're look terrible for January through February, and all of a sudden they're still not great. Obviously, like that's not my point, but they're able to keep you in games, even to win you games, like we saw last night. So yeah, just it's been an awesome season. We've got UConn tomorrow night. I think we start talking about that a little bit right now.
Yeah, no question. It's to tie a bow on the defense thing. I think there's no question that there's been improvements in the postseason, and there's just been better like overall effort and bite and want to on the defensive end. Sometimes that's all it comes down to. I mean, there's plenty of scheme issues, and this team's never going to be an elite defensive team because there are personnel scheme issues with it, but some of it is just guard your man, like fight over screens, get those. If you get a couple fouls because you're fighting too hard over a screen, that means you're actually playing really hard. And I thought Illinois did a great job navigating a lot of Iowa State ran a lot of sets, a lot of screening actions, and Illinois I thought did a really nice job taking a lot of those away for the most part. And yeah, I mean, it's improvement. And we talked about coming into the postseason, like not asking this team to hold teams to 54. We're not asking this team to go from 200th in the country defensively like they were in February to second. just improve and be a solid enough defense that you can get stops when you need to, and you show enough effort, and you're not taking yourself out of games on the defensive end and making yourself score 95 to win a game. And it might be a different story against a team like UConn, but it's been an improvement for sure. And just so you can tell that there's more effort and more feeling on that end of the floor. Like it's now or never for us to guard and guard our ass off, So I think that's part of it as well. But
the best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are now partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 all through the NCAA tournament. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not that bet hits. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you get up to $1,500 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Most importantly, we do have some fun stuff coming for the conference tournaments and especially for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boosts, and what I love the most, a nice parlay boost for anything you could possibly imagine betting on in the NCAA tournament, from odds and getting an at-large bid to Final Four futures to the highest seed to make to the Sweet 16. I'm calling it right now. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet for your March Madness needs. So go download the BetMGM app, use the code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request: the best way to support the Field of 68 and our content you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the pod, like and share the YouTube videos, tell your friends about us. It helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Let's talk about the game Saturday night, in which, defense is going to be a big story in this one as well, because you're going up against a team who can match you on offense about as good as any team in college basketball can. After last night's games, UConn beat San Diego State. Illinois beat Iowa State. UConn has regained that number one offensive efficiency rating on KenPom, so Illinois drops to number two. It's going to be number one offense versus number two offense in college basketball for a trip to the Final Four on the line. Obviously, a UConn team that number one overall seed, number one now on every metric site, 34-3. They've won 10 straight. They've won 14 of 15 dating back to December 20th. Actually, it might be more than that now. It might be 24 of 25. That's what it is, actually. They've won 24 of 25 games. And it's going to be a tall task. There's no question about it. Illinois is probably going to have to play their best game they've played all season long, and they've played some great ones, last night included. But last night's performance won't beat this UConn team. This UConn team is on a completely different level. So far in the tournament, they beat Stetson 91-52. They beat Northwestern 75-58. They beat San Diego State 82-52. While the game before Illinois came on last night, if you didn't catch it, you were too busy pre-gaming or whatnot, UConn won that by 30, a casual 30 piece in the Sweet 16 against a team that was in the national title game last year. They've won their last 9 tournament games by 13 or more points. But I think this Illinois team is as good equipped to give them, or as well equipped, rather, to give them a true test as about any team they've seen in a long time throughout these last 9 tournament games. And I don't really think I'm being a homer saying that. We'll get into the matchup. But I think Illinois has the pieces to push this UConn team as hard as they can get pushed. I'm not saying that's going to ultimately lead to a win. A lot of things would have to go right for Illinois in this game. But this is going to be a really intriguing, fascinating matchup. What do you see here? What stands out about facing a team like UConn on Saturday night?
You got to be firing on all cylinders. Like, I don't even know where to begin with UConn. If you've watched college basketball, like if you're listening to this podcast, you've watched college basketball for the past couple of years. UConn, best offense in the country, and a defense that's like as good as Iowa State's. So I don't even know. Like, NBA draft picks, All-Americans, one of the best coaches in the country. 7'2", 7'3", Donovan Clingan in the middle is going to be a nightmare. shooters all around him, Cam Spencer, Alex Caravan, and then just like elite guard play, Tristan Newton, Solomon Ball, I'm blanking on their other freshman's name, Stephon Castle. They're just dominant. Like their bench is as good as any in the country too. Samson Johnson, massive off the bench. Some other guys, like just everybody contributes. Everybody buys into what they're doing. It's going to be an impossible task. But I want to hear more on why you think Illinois can match up as good as anybody can with UConn. Because I know the defense is going to have to lock into levels that they haven't been to if they want any chance. And I get the offense is like as good as UConn's is. But I don't know. Like I want to hear you talk a little bit more.
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily that I think Illinois matches up great with them, because I don't think there's almost no team ever that matches up well with this UConn team. I just think when you look at the dominant run that UConn has been on here in the tournament, obviously won the national title last year, cruised their way to it. Like I said, all 6 wins last year in the tournament by 13 or more points. And then you look what they've done this tournament getting here. I just think Illinois is the biggest challenge that they're going to see over these 10 games that they played in the tournament. Now, I know that they obviously went on a national title run last year, but you look at who they beat to get there, and, you know, they got through the first couple games where they beat Iona and they beat St. Mary's. Then you get 8 seed Arkansas in the Sweet 16. Then you get Gonzaga in the Elite 8. You go to the Final Four, you take on Miami, and then you take on San Diego State. And now this year, Stetson, Northwestern, San Diego State. Obviously, you dominate in the fashion they do and you win those games. I'm taking zero away from that. I'm not trying to say like, oh, UConn has just cakewalked and gotten every break. That's not true. They've been the best team in college basketball. I'm just saying, you look at that list of teams that they've seen in the tournament, I think this Illinois team is the toughest test they're going to see. And it's really just because Illinois can score with them, and Illinois has the talent that can match them. I'm not saying Illinois is the more talented team. I think depth-wise, beyond just their top couple players, UConn has the advantage, obviously, as they do over everybody. But Illinois has the top-end talent that can match this UConn's top-end talent. You got Terrence Shannon, who is going to be the best player on the floor. Very rare that a UConn opponent has the best player on the floor. And now UConn probably has like 2 through 4, but Marcus Damask and Coleman Hawkins and just the offensive firepower on this team, Illinois can get to 80-something or 90 and just push UConn. And obviously, I think biggest concern going into the matchup is, can Illinois get a stop on this UConn team? It's an unstoppable force offensively. There's a balance there where it's not necessarily one guy that, like Terrence Shannon, that's going to get you 30. Tristan Newton's a first-team All-American, but you also got Cam Spencer averaging 15. You also have Alex Caravan, who makes shots. You also have Castle, who can go off. You have Donovan Clingan, who's a force inside. You got guys off the bench. It's just such a balance there, and their half-court offense is impossible to stop because they have such elaborate sets and actions, and there's so many different counters off each action and so many screens being set for guys with multiple different options, and they play so smart. They're as well coached of an offensive team as there is in college basketball that you'll find, and Illinois is going to have a lot of trouble based on the fact that this Illinois team that's had some communication issues, that's had some issues just guarding some sets. UConn, there's a concern there that UConn could put 100 on Illinois. There's no question. But Illinois can at least test them on the other end, and I think there's some interesting matchups there where if you do get some one-on-one situations with Marcus Damask on Tristan Newton or on Cam Spencer or Terrence Shannon, get some matchups, or if you can find a way to neutralize Klingen's rim protection ability, which I'll talk about in a minute here after I throw it back to you. Like, Illinois has paths to score a lot of points on this UConn team as well. So my overall point in all that rambling is just that I think UConn's going to see the biggest test they've seen in postseason play in some time. And I think Illinois has a path to make this a really competitive game, unlike a lot of these teams that UConn has ran into where you just kind of tell going into the game. I think this team's running into a buzzsaw, and UConn just has so much more talent and is just so much better. I don't necessarily think you can say that as much going into a matchup with Illinois.
I think one aspect is like UConn defending champs. They're going to be the hunted. Now, Illinois is the hunter in this position. And there's something about that. If you manage to stay in the game somehow, like 30 minutes, 35 minutes, there's that aspect of like, UConn, you can't lose this. You're the defending champs. You're favored by 8 points. That's another crazy thing. Like, that just goes to show Illinois wins 7 in a row, wins the Big Ten tournament. One of the best players in the country, and they're underdogs by 7 or 8 points in an Elite Eight game.
I think the
UConn's
line
just so
opened at 10. I'm pretty sure it opened at 10 initially, and Illinois got bet a ton. Now it's, I think, 7.5 or something. But if I saw somewhere that it might have opened at 9 or 10, which is unbelievable for an Elite Eight game. It just goes to show UConn. I mean, it's just insane.
we're a top 10 Ken Palm team, one of the best offenses in the country, and we're 10-point underdogs. You're saying, like, yeah, it goes to show how good UConn is. But like, if Illinois can just hang around for 30 minutes, which is so much harder or so much easier said than done. I mean, Illinois has a chance. Like Terrence Shannon, one of the most clutch players in the country. Now I get every player on UConn is clutch. Like they don't miss clutch shots. Like Alex Karaban never misses an open look. Cam Spencer never misses an open look. It's crazy. They look like an NBA offense. Like Illinois' offense is built around guys exploiting mismatches, like Damask taking care of smaller guards, Shannon just bodying everybody, Coleman exploiting bigs that can't get out to the perimeter. And then UConn's offense is really not like that at all. They will just body you with like NBA-looking sets. They look like an NBA team running offense. The way they screen, they move off the ball. They'll just like float a pass over a screener that's 30 feet away. It's beautiful to watch. So seeing a guy like Justin Harmon try to defend that and Dane trying to defend that is going to be interesting. But I feel so good. Like I think there were 10 minutes left in the game last night versus Iowa State, and they showed a graphic like the winner of this game will play at 6 p.m. Eastern against UConn to go to the Final Four. Like just saying that you have a shot, you're playing the best team in the country of the past 2 years, but like just having a shot to beat a team in 40 minutes to go to the Final Four is something like I predicted it on the pod like a week ago before the tournament started, but like I didn't really expect this. And just being able to say that you have a chance to beat UConn and go to the Final Four, so awesome to say. So I'm so happy to be here talking about this.
Yeah, there's no question about it. So some keys for me in the matchup here. I think number one is you have to find a way to neutralize Klingon on the defensive end. I mean, he's such an eraser at the rim. I mean, more so than even Zach Edey. I mean, this is a guy that is the best rim protector in college basketball. UConn allows the lowest percentage. It's not necessarily like Iowa State, where Iowa State came into last night's matchup allowing the lowest percentage of shots at the rim, like shot attempts at the rim. UConn will allow some attempts at the rim, but they allow the lowest percentage of makes at the rim. And it's all because Donovan Klingon is in there affecting shots, blocking shots. And for a team like Illinois, who likes to do a lot of damage in the paint around the rim, has a star player who's predicated his best skill is getting downhill with his left hand, Illinois has to find a way to neutralize that rim protection. And to me, Illinois has a path to do that when you have Coleman Hawkins in your lineup as a 5-man. Now, I think that probably comes at the expense of Ty Rodgers' minutes in this game as we talk about going against Purdue. And Ty's going to have to play some because I think you're going to need him on the defensive end. But you have to find a way to put Klingon in conflict defensively, make UConn make a decision about where Klingon is going to guard, make Klingon come out and show something on the perimeter to Coleman Hawkins, especially if he can make a couple shots, because that is so important in scoring on this UConn team. On the perimeter, it's not like an elite perimeter defense by any means. I mean, you've got Stephon Castle, a freshman, who I think is a really good defender. You bring a couple guys off the bench, Hassan Diarra, who can defend, Solo Ball, their other freshman, pretty decent defender. But like on the perimeter, you've got guys that you can exploit a little bit. Like Tristan Newton's not some all-world defender. Cam Spencer's kind of like Marcus Damask. Like he can pick on them a little bit.
They're good team defenders.
Alex Karaban's a guy that definitely, if you put a more explosive athlete on the perimeter against him, he can get beat. You said it. Yeah, they're great team defenders, and they funnel everything into their stud in Klingon. And you know that if you give up a step on the perimeter, he's probably going to erase it, or he's probably going to affect that shot. But that's why it's so important. The number one key to this game is find a way to make Klingon guard out on the perimeter, find a way to bring Klingon away from the basket. Or another way to neutralize him is to put him on the bench with a couple fouls. I think that's a path for it. In a scenario where Illinois gets this done, they're shooting a bunch of free throws. They're putting some fouls on these UConn guys. UConn will foul occasionally. I mean, they're pretty good at not fouling, but Klingon's been in foul trouble in certain games, and they just completely change. Like, they play a completely different defensive style with Samson Johnson in the game, where Klingon's going to play a really deep drop coverage and just wreck wreck it up around the rim. And Samson Johnson's going to be a lot more aggressive out on the perimeter, hedging screens, and he's not your typical rim protecting 5-man. So if Klingon could get into foul trouble, God forbid, that would be massive. Illinois is a team that gets to the free throw line so often and has a guy who's probably going to go right at Klingon a couple times, and Terrence Shannon. That's a path there, and it could be on the guards too. If a couple guards get some cheap fouls trying to chase Illinois or trying to body up the mask in the post, I think Illinois, in a world where Illinois wins this game, they're putting quite a bit of fouls and forcing Dan Hurley to play his bench a little more than he wants to. And Klingon, especially, if you could find a way to put some fouls on him, that would change this game. But Illinois is a team that shot 29 free throws last night. Now, make the free throws. If you miss 14 free throws against UConn, see you later. UConn's heading to the Final Four. But I don't expect that to happen. That was the first time in a while that was an issue for Illinois. So if they get to the free throw line 29 times like they did against Iowa State, that's probably what you're gonna need to get into the 20s in free throw attempts in a world where you win this game, to me. And then key number 3 is just, can you get some stops? Like, can you find a way to get some stops on this UConn team? It's going to be a challenge, but you're going to have to hold them down as best you can. You're going to have to really fight over a lot of those screens. Communication's got to be really, really good in this game. I'm interested to see how kind of Brad Underwood's defensive approach. Is Illinois going to do a lot of switching and try to switch a lot of those off-ball actions? Because on paper, that's probably Illinois' best path to stopping this team, is if they can really switch fluidly and just kind of interchange a lot of their athletes and their length. But as we've seen, there's been plenty of problems with that this year when Illinois has gone to kind of their switch everything defense, and on a 42-hour prep for this game and trying to learn a lot of these sets and trying to get on the same page with a lot of switching, probably a tough ask for Illinois to do. So I'm curious to see how Brad Underwood plays this defensively, if he does change things up or if you go straight man. But regardless, you're going to need to find a way to get stops. And I would imagine Terrence Shannon will probably guard Tristan Newton. And then you're probably going to have Ty Rodgers try to chase Cam Spencer around when he's in the game. Maybe a little bit of Harmon when he's in the game. Maybe a little bit of Damask, because he's actually been okay at kind of chasing shooters around the perimeter off screens. Obviously, Hawkins going to have to do what he can against Klingon. And, you got Karaban to worry about as well. That's probably a Quincy assignment. It's just tough. This team's got so much talent and so much offensive firepower. You got to find a way to get stops and play really, really hard defensively and communicate defensively. And ultimately, you're probably just going to have to hope and pray that UConn misses some shots that they make usually. That's probably the path for Illinois winning, is you look up to the sky and say, could you miss a couple tonight? That's probably key number 4 is, hey, UConn maybe have an off night from the floor.
That was one of my few points to make, and it kind of ties into your foul trouble thing. If Terrence is somehow out in transition and a guy like Karaban or Spencer has to get back and try to stop him, they could get in foul trouble pretty easily. And then all of a sudden, Cam Spencer's on the bench. He's out of his rhythm offensively. He's not hitting shots. I'm not saying that makes UConn extremely beatable or anything, but you take the little things in this game. If something like that is to happen, that's kind of a huge advantage for Illinois. Even though their bench, like I said, is one of the best in the country still, there's not a massive drop off. These guys, a lot of the good offenses in the country will have 5 or 6 guys averaging 8 to 10 points a game. UConn has that, but they're all averaging 13 points a game. They're just so dominant offensively. And like you said, Klingon, if Klingon is in foul trouble, which I don't think he has been much since the start of the year.
He's been pretty good at it, but there's been a few games where he has been. And honestly, look through UConn's schedule and see their closest games, and that's probably a game he was in foul trouble. It's just, if he's on the court, they're unstoppable. You have to find a way to neutralize him.
And the thing is, he can, if Coleman is trying to exploit him by getting to the 3-point line and just trying to stretch the floor, I guess, he can kind of get out there too. It's not like Zach Edey where he's just kind of camping in the paint. Klingon is so versatile. It's crazy. It's going to be very difficult to even score on this team. But that being said, Illinois does have the best player in the country, the best player on the floor in this game, no question. Even though some of these guys are going to be NBA lottery picks, other guys are All-Americans. Shannon's at a different level than these guys, and I don't think that's really debatable, like we said earlier. So having him is that gives me hope. And even Coleman is just having guys in their 4th and 5th year, like I said earlier too. that gives me hope. Like, you're gonna have to find a way to get stops, but this is your last game if you lose. Like, there's gonna have to be crazy effort defensively. Something I noticed against Iowa State was we had a kind of weird amount of steals. Like, I don't know if that was part of the game plan at all. Like, some of it was just poor passing from Iowa State that led to transition buckets too. But we did have 8 or 9 steals, and that was like the majority of Iowa State's turnovers. So I don't know, something like, you're not really going to be forcing turnovers against UConn because their guard play is just so good. Like, they don't really do that. But I don't know, getting some steals now in transition would be key too. But yeah, I don't know how much more there is to say about this team. UConn, best team in the country. Illinois is up there, but it's still just a different level. Illinois is going to have to play their A+++ game to make the Final Four. But just saying that, I'm happy with Illinois just having a chance to compete in this game. I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, no question. And just to hit on that last point a little more, like it seems like a key for every Illinois game, but if Illinois can get out and run and get out and play fast out in transition, it's a UConn team that's capable of playing that way. They've got the athletes, they got the talent, but they are a team that plays pretty slow usually, and they're happy sitting down in the half court and just picking you apart with their elaborate sets in the half court. So I think, a path for Illinois to have some success, like you said, even if it's not forcing turnovers, if it's just off missed shots or whatever it is, for Illinois to manufacture some transition opportunities, I think that is a way, like you said, to maybe put a couple of cheap fouls on Terrence Shannon just getting downhill on a 1-on-2 in transition like he likes to do, or just Illinois trying to speed UConn up a little bit more, which I don't think they've really been sped up much all season. But like I said, Illinois probably a team that is as well equipped to do that as anybody. And so that's one final key that I would throw in there. But yep, you said it all. Just to be in this position, I think any Illini fan would tell you, maybe save for like Illinois going out Saturday night and losing by 44 and just throwing a complete dud on the floor. Anything that happens Saturday night is just gravy to this season. And it's an unbelievably successful season that has accomplished something this program hasn't accomplished in almost 20 years regardless. And nobody expects Illinois to win this game. It is a nice change. For the last couple of months, other than when Illinois was playing Purdue, Illinois has been the hunted. They've been the team that, whether it's a team trying to get a quad one win against Illinois, whether it's in the Big Ten tournament, teams trying to upset Illinois and try to get into the tournament, whether it's, in these first 3 tournament games, you got a 14 seed who's hunting this 3 seed. You've got a Duquesne team who's trying to make a Cinderella run and trying to overcome a 3 seed. Even Iowa State, like I don't necessarily think there was a hunter and hunted dynamic to the Illinois-Iowa State game, but it did feel like, especially when Illinois got off to the start they did, and it's an Iowa State team that's a lot younger and has also not had a ton of postseason success. Like there was an aspect, at least late in that game, when Iowa State was trying to come back, of like a mountain to overcome, and Illinois was this team that you're trying to get up for and trying to overcome in that game. And it's finally a situation for the first time that Illinois is the true underdog. Everybody is going to pick UConn going into this game, and rightfully so. I'm picking UConn as an Illinois fan, unbiasedly. But, just go in there with house money, tip up the ball, give everything you have for 40 minutes, knowing that this is all that's standing in front of a Final Four appearance. And if Illinois can test UConn, compete in this game, regardless of what happens, it's unbelievable to have this opportunity and to play on this stage for this program who, as we've chronicled, what Brad Underwood has done to get this program back to this game on Saturday night from when he started and the years that preceded him, unbelievable, regardless of what happens. And I couldn't be more excited to watch this 40 minutes of basketball, regardless of how it goes. And if Illinois comes out and has the best game of their season and finds a way, boy, it might be one of the best wins this program has ever had.
I think it would have to be like the 05 season, 89 season, getting to the Final Four, awesome. But like, just doing it like this year for the first time in almost 20 years, it would feel so much different. And just
the caliber of team. I mean, this UConn team, when you look at what they've done the last 2 seasons, it's unbelievable. It doesn't feel like anybody can beat them right now. And so if it were to happen, it'd just be incredible. But do you want to give a prediction for this game, or you just want to leave it and just be like, whatever. I mean, I think we're aligned here that I think UConn wins. I think it ends here for Illinois, but just get that ball tipped up and see what happens.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I think UConn wins. I do think we keep it close. Like, are we going to continue the streak of UConn beating teams by 15 plus? I doubt it. Like, I think we give them a game to some extent, at least for the first half, I hope. But just for the sake of the podcast, I don't want to go out sad. So I'm going to be a homer and just say Illinois is going to win somehow. Just a miraculous Terrence Shannon 40 piece. So yeah, I'm not doing a score prediction, but I don't know. Illinois Final Four just for the sake of saying it. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah,
and then if we somehow win, Clemson or Alabama, if we're looking ahead a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it feels like the winner of this game, obviously UConn, everyone thinks so, but if Illinois can climb this mountain, I think the winner of this game has a pretty darn good chance to go win the whole darn thing in Phoenix next weekend. I think the winner of this game is going to be one of the favorites, if not depending on, obviously you got Purdue and Houston still left, but I think the winner of this game is going to have a real darn good chance to go cut nets down and win a national title. Obviously UConn, if they do what they're supposed to do and beat Illinois, that's been my pick since November when they assembled this roster. So let's have some fun. Let's enjoy maybe the final 40 minutes of Illinois basketball in this unbelievable season that they've had. Maybe the last 40 minutes of Terrence Shannon, Marcus Damash, Coleman Hawkins, Quincy Guerrier, all these guys in an Illinois uniform. I hope it's not, but you got to realize that there's a chance it is. But let's see what they got. This team has proven time and time again that they can rise to a challenge. And I'm with you. Even if my official, completely unbiased prediction is that I think UConn ultimately wins, I think that streak of blowing teams out is done. I think Illinois is going to test UConn, give them all they can handle at the very least, and ultimately it might go the defending champs' way. But we'll see. And we'll be back probably Monday to break it all down and talk about an Elite Eight game for this Illinois program. Just unbelievable. Like I said, if you want to give us a little bit of credit because year one of the pod and all of a sudden we're in the Elite Eight, I mean, I'm not going to push back on you. I mean, who knows? But, we'll talk about it. We'll break it down and we'll start looking ahead to the offseason if it does come to that. But make sure to drop a follow on our Twitter account at Champagne on Ice. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Field of 68 Podcast Network, and find us on all your podcast platforms, Apple Podcast, Spotify, anywhere else. We will be there. We will be back probably Monday to talk Illinois and UConn for a chance to go to the Final Four. Enjoy the game, everybody. Go Illini, and we will see you right here on Champagne on Ice.